Now we're going to look at applications, or, in other words, word problems. There's a particular way I want you to set these up because it's a whole lot easier on you. First thing, let's go read the problem. Kate borrows $10,000, some from her friend at 8% annual interest, twice as much as that from her bank at 9%, and the remainder from her insurance company at 5%. She pays a total of $830 in interest for the first year. How much did she borrow from each source? When you first read through the problem, you get some idea what's going on. But while you're reading, I need you to pay very, very close attention to the question, the how much or the how many, because that will start your column headings. So how much did she borrow from each source? Well, they're talking about a friend, the bank, and the insurance company. So there's my column headings. Money from friend, money from bank, money from insurance company. Now I let variables, that's my next line, I'm going to let x sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 3 represent how much she borrowed from these respective sources. So x sub 1 represents money borrowed from her friend, x sub 2 is money borrowed from the bank, and x sub 3 is money borrowed from her insurance company. The 10,000 here is a total. A lot of times you'll have totals here, but this is sort of different in that it starts off with Kate borrows 10,000, and if x sub 1 is the money from her friend, x sub 2 is money from bank, and x sub 3 is money from the insurance company, then in all she borrowed 10,000, and that technically is an equation right there. So x sub 1 plus x sub 2 plus x sub 3 will equal 10,000. This doesn't happen often, but if this is what these variables represent, which is the money she borrowed in all, well, she did borrow 10,000. Now the next thing I look for is more information that I can put in to my table. There's an interest rate, the annual interest rate. So this would be a row heading, the interest rate. Interest rate with respect to her friend was 8%. Change it to decimal, that would be 0.08. From the bank, it would be 0.09. And from the insurance company, it would be 0.05. Excuse me. But now, in order for me, there's a total of $830 in interest. Now, to get interest, for this interest, how interest is calculated, the amount of money that she has got to pay her friend, it would be 0.08 times x sub 1. That is the money she'd have to pay her friend for the use of that money she borrowed. For the bank, it would be 0.09 times x sub 2. Insurance company would be 0.05 times x sub 3. And this is an amount of money, and this would be technically a total. Now here's my first equation. That's that one we already talked about. The interest that she has to pay, remember it's 0.08 times x sub 1 plus 0.08 times x sub 2 plus 0.09 times x sub 2 and 0.05 times x sub 3, and that would be equal to 830. Now there's one more equation here. It's sort of hidden. It's right here. Twice as much as that from her bank. Now do this for me. I want your right hand to be the money she borrowed from the bank. Left hand is money she borrowed from her friend. Now she borrowed twice as much from the bank than from her friend. Now in order for my left hand to be up and equal to my right hand, I need to multiply that by 2. Now remember, my left hand was the money borrowed from her friend. So my left hand's x sub 1, right hand's x sub 2. So if I go 2 times x sub 1, that would equal my x sub 2. Now the next thing I need you to do, now I need to see a table, I need to see the equations. The next thing would be the equations put into the augmented matrix. I do have to modify this one. I'd have to subtract x sub 2. So see if you see this. if that's okay. Now, what I want from you for word problems is I want to see the setup, the table you use, the equations, and I'll know if you can do the Gauss-Jordan from the rest of the test. So word problems, I just want you to go ahead and use that RREF key. So put this into your calculator. I believe I've already got it in there. Just trying to save a little bit of time. Let's see if I do. Yep, I do. So put it in your calculator. Pause me just a second because now I'm going to go do the RREF and I'd like you to do it too. Over to Math, up arrow, and let's go up to B. Tell it the matrix we want this to be done to. So you should have that matrix. Now, since this is a word problem, you've got to answer the question. How much did she borrow from each source? She borrowed $3,000 from her friend, $6,000 from the bank, and $1,000 from her insurance company. And that would finish the problem. Got a few more. 2 sociologists have grant money to study school busing in a particular city. They wish to conduct an opinion survey using 600 telephone contacts and 400 house contacts. Survey Company A has personnel to do 30 telephone, 10 house contacts per hour. Survey Company B can handle 20 telephone and 20 house contacts per hour. How many hours should be scheduled for each firm to produce exactly the number of contact needed? So again, how many hours should be scheduled for each firm? So they're talking about Survey Company A and Survey Company B. Those are my column headings. So I'm going to let X sub 1 and X sub 2 represent the hours with respect to Company A and Company B. So information about Company A, let's see. Now these are totals. I can't do anything with totals until I have row headings. So Survey Company A, here it is, has personnel to do 30 telephone, 10 house contacts per hour. So let's see. There's the telephone, there's 30, house is 10. Survey Company B has 20 and 20. Now, I have a telephone line. They need 600 telephone contacts and 400 house contacts. So those would be my totals. I think I'll go put totals here. There. So do you see the equations? I've got 30x sub 1 plus 20x sub 2 equals 600. And 10x sub 1 plus 20x sub 2 equals 400. Put it in your calculator and do the RREF function to it. And let's see if you end up with this. So how many hours should be scheduled for each firm? They should schedule 10 hours with Survey Company A and 15 hours with Survey Company B. Yeah. Remember, answer the question. An animal breeder can buy 4 types of tiger food. Each case of brand A contains 25 units of fiber, 30 units of protein, 30 units of fat. Each case of brand B contains 50 units of fiber, 30 units of protein, and 20 units of fat. Each case of brand C contains 75 units of fiber, 30 units of protein, 20 units of fat. Each case of brand D contains 100 units of fiber, 60 units of protein, 30 units of fat. Okay. How many cases of each brand should the breeder mix together to obtain a food that provides 1,200 units of fiber, 600 units of protein, 400 units of fat? Again, how many cases of each brand? So, what are they referring to? They're referring to brand A, B, C, and D. Those are your column headings. So whatever the question is that you have to find, what they're asking you to find are column headings. And then we start breaking this information up. And it's a whole lot easier to see it in table form than in all of this mess. So brand A starts off 25 units of fiber, 30 units of protein, 30 units of fat. So I need my row headings, okay, and the values that go for brand A. If you'll notice, X sub 1 is going to represent the number of cases for brand A. And see if you can fill out the rest of this table before you pause me and see if you can fill out the rest of this table. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So pause me. So X sub 2 is brand B, X sub 3 is brand C, and X sub 4 is brand D. And here's my totals. Remember, the totals I can't do anything with until I get some row headings. And hopefully you see the equations. I've got 25 X sub 1 plus 50 X sub 2 plus 75 X sub 3 plus 100 X sub 4 equals 1200, and so on and so on. Put this into your calculator in the augmented matrix and then go do the RREF. Pause me again because I'd like you to go ahead and put it in your calculator, see if you can access that RREF, and then see if you come up with the next matrix. A little bit different from what we've had before. So this, if I wrote this out in equation form, this would be X sub 1 minus X sub 4 equals 0. X sub 2 plus 4X sub 4 would equal 12. X sub 3 minus X sub 4 would be 8. Now we need to know what X sub 1, X sub 2, and X sub 3 are, so I'm going to move all of these terms that contain X sub 4 to the right hand side. I'm going to add this one to both sides, subtract this term to both sides, and add that one. And if I do that, it ends up looking like that. But guys, I need something for X sub 4. Now X sub 4 is what we're going to call a parameter here. It's in all the equations. We don't know what it is, so assign it an arbitrary letter, say T. This is called a parameter, and we're going to have different solutions. Now we've seen this before. We said we had infinite solutions back then, but there's an issue here, and we'll look at it in just a second. So if I let X sub 4 be T, I'm going to have a T here, a T here, a T here, and I need to see that X sub 4 equals T. So those would be my solutions right there. Now let's do some what-ifs. Now the smallest amount of cases that we could get would be 0. So I'm going to let T be 0. It can't be negative. I can't have a negative amount of cases. So if I let T be 0, see if you see what these other ones are going to be. And see if you see this. So if T were 0, then that would mean that we would only get 12 cases of brand B and 8 cases of brand C. But what if T were 1? Let me see, I'd have a 1 here. This would give me an 8. That would be a 9, and that would be a 1. So it changes. I would have to get 1 case of brand A, 8 cases of brand B, 9 cases of brand C, and 1 case of brand D. That's another possibility. What if could we do T is equal to 2? I would have 2 here, 4 for X sub 2, 10 for X sub 3, and 2 for X sub 4. So no negatives, that would be legal. What about 3? I would have 3 here, 0 here, 11, and 3. Could we do T equal 4? Hopefully you said no. Look at X sub 2. If T were 4, I'd end up with a negative 4. I can't have a negative amount of cases. So I've only got legal values when T is 0, when T is 1, when T is 2, and when T is 3. The only other thing or mix in this problem that I probably would need to know is how much money do these particular cases, is each one worth? And how much can, with respect to totals. But that wasn't part of this problem. We just had to satisfy the nutritional need of these tigers. And there's different situations here. Okay, so I need you to start working on tables. Remember, your unknowns are your column headings. Your row headings come from information within the problem. And that's it for this particular one. Thank you.